Hello everybody and welcome back to SparkleDart. Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about was fame and fortune. Highly overrated, let me say. Rich and famous people aren't happy. Poor and unfamous people are also not happy. Let me tell you what, nobody is happy, and you know why that is? It's because people don't know what makes them happy. You know? People look and see people who are successful and think they must be happy because they've got so much going for them, but you know what, that's just not true. You could have all the money in the world and you would never be a happy person because of it. If you're not going to be happy when you're poor, you're not going to be happy when you're rich, and that is just the way that it is. Now the thing is, if you ever played the lottery, if you ever played the Powerball or just like scratch tickets or nothing like that, then you'd know that just listening to people's success stories on the internet, or on the TV, or on TiVo, or on YouTube, or on Bing or Hulu, or whatever else, they always talk about how unhappy they are because, you know, they buy giant mansions and 15 cars and everything that Nickelback talks about in that song about being a rock star. What was that song called? That song where they're talking about being a rock star? Where they're like, hey, I want to be a rock star. What was that rock star song called? I don't remember. Anyways, they talk about all that stuff and how little it brings them in terms of being happy. And you know what? It is difficult to be a happy person, because to be a happy person you have to be charitable, you have to be giving, you have to be selfless. You're only happy if you're not helping yourself, and I believe that that's true. See, the thing is... Hold on here. This is weird. Submarines. I've worked many jobs in my life. I'm 43 years old, so I've got a lot of experience just going out, helping people, being a nice guy, being a charitable guy. I've given a lot of money to charity over the years. Every time they ask me if I'm going to donate to JRDF or the Red Cross or whatever, I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll donate to that charity or whichever one where they're giving basketballs to inner city youth. That one, that's a good one too. You just gotta be given. If you're not given, then all you're doing is taking. And if you're not taking, then you're probably a homeless man. Now the thing is, it's hard to be charitable when you don't have a lot of money left to your name after you've spent all your bills, or after you've, paid off all your bills, all your car payments, mortgages, and you got like maybe $100 extra for the month, right? So nobody's expecting you to be charitable. Nobody, you know what? It does not matter if you're charitable or not to most people, because most people think that being charitable is something that only stupid people do. So there was an episode of The Simpsons wherein, okay, so Lisa gets a substitute teacher, and he's a Jewish cowboy, and they go to the museum, and Homer's like, so how much does the museum cost? And the lady at the desk is like, well, it's a donation. You don't have to pay anything, but there's a suggested donation of $4. And Homer's like, well, that's bunk. I'm not going to pay $4 for a museum, something I could see for free. Why would I pay $4 for? I'm not even going to enjoy going in there, so why would I pay money for it? And the thing is, you got to pay money for museums because museums house a lot of important historical artifacts. And without those important historical artifacts, we wouldn't know anything about the past, and we certainly wouldn't be able to decipher anything about the future. Now, a lot of stuff will happen in the future, just like a lot of stuff happened in the past, and we just have to be prepared for it. We also have to document it so we know what to avoid in the future, because they say that history always repeats itself now. If we're doing stuff today that doesn't work, then we gotta keep sure that we're not doing that same stuff, 100 years from now, if we're still around on this godforsaken planet, not to be doing that stuff at the time. So, Stephen Hawking, the man in the wheelchair, the gimp in the wheelchair, he says that to ensure the long-term survival of man, we have to basically what he says is that we have to turn Mars into a second Earth. And that's what he said, and I believe it, because if we're using nuclear bombs and nuclear Fukushimas to live on this planet, then we're never going to ensure long-term survival on the planet. And I think that is a huge problem, because if we can't survive on this planet for more than 100 to 200 years, then we're going to be dead way before that. And I think that space travel and terraformation are way, way, way off our radars right now. I think that's something that's basically science fiction at this point. I think that's something that will never happen as long as I am alive, and I believe it because we just don't have the technology. We don't even have the technology to travel to Mars faster than, I think the time is like 3 months, maybe 6 months, maybe even 9 months. Maybe it would take a whole baby gestation to go to Mars. Maybe it would, I don't know. I couldn't say because I've never had a baby and I've never gone to Mars, so those two things are foreign concepts to me. So we sent several space rovers to Mars over the past couple years. I think one landed there, I think it was Opportunity or Spirit or whatever, landed there in 2012, and it's been sending us messages from Mars ever since then. There's been no Martians, there's been no carbon, oxygen, O2. There's been nothing there that would we consider hospitable. It's been like basically like living in the Sahara Desert but without oxygen. See, at least in the Sahara Desert there's oxygen for humans to live, and we just don't have that here. We don't have it anywhere, and if we want to terraform Mars, it's going to be a huge and very arduous task. So what you got to basically do to terraform a planet is you got to build. If the planet has no atmosphere, such as Mars does, okay. So here's the thing: at sea level, Earth has 1 psi atmosphere. I think on Mars it's like 0.001 or maybe even less of atmosphere, which means that all that solar radiation's getting in there, all that stuff that we can't be having if we're going to be living on the planet, you know, whatever else. Solar winds, it's all going to kill you. It's basically it's just radiation from the sun. Radiation from the sun it just floats and there's a word I'm looking for. Permeates the universe. And not just the universe, but the solar system, which is more important than the universe because that's where we live. So solar radiation permeates the solar system, which makes it a very inhospitable place for planets that don't have atmospheres that can block it out. Because we've got a magnetic sphere that circles the Earth and keeps all that stuff from hitting us, which I would like to refer to as Aurora Borealis or Aurora Australis, depending on which hemisphere you're in, because it's the same thing all throughout. It's the same concept, I guess. Not maybe the same thing, but the same concept all throughout. So basically what you gotta do to terraform a planet is you got to send an atmosphere there, and that's hard to do. So what you gotta do is you send greenhouse gases, which gases they are, I'm not necessarily sure. I would wager to say probably something to the effect of nitrogen and oxygen and carbon dioxide. I'm pretty sure Mars has an atmosphere of carbon monoxide, which is super deadly to humans. So we got to get rid of that stuff and turn it into carbon dioxide and oxygen and nitrogen and whatever else. You know, it's going to be real good once we can get it to work out for us. So once there's an atmosphere, it starts to build up greenhouse gases, which are super important to humans, because they not only do they trap in thermal energy, but oh god, what the fuck? They trap in thermal energy, and it increases the temperature. Because if the Earth didn't have a temperature, daytime on the Earth would be something like 200 degrees, and nighttime would be negative 150 degrees, like it is on Mars or on the Moon. And we just can't have that. Humans can't live in that sort of condition. So we have to make sure that there are greenhouse gases, which you might think that greenhouse gases are bad based off of what you heard about global warming, but they're good under certain conditions. Now, here's an example of why they were bad. On Venus, there are greenhouse gases. They got a layer of atmosphere that is so thick that it would take like the craziest sort of space probe to penetrate that stuff. Penetrate, that's a funny word. So, the Russians sent some landers to Venus in like the 70s or 80s, and some of them were able to take pictures before they eventually burned to death and all their circuits were fried, and that is what happens on Venus. So we can't go to Venus. Venus is a good example of what happens when you have too much atmosphere. The planet basically boils itself to death. Venus is basically the same size as Earth, but the thing about Venus is that it's not actually in its sun's habitable zone, so it can't really be a good candidate for terraformation because we'd be too close to the sun that it'd be too hot all the time. There's something called the Goldilocks zone in for any star, there's something called the Goldilocks zone, and basically what that is a zone in space in which they're far enough away from the sun that it's not too hot, and they're close enough to the sun that it's not too cold. So basically what they're doing is it's just right, like Goldilocks said with the bears. And along with said bears, she eventually got herself killed because she was, didn't Goldilocks die? I don't remember how that turned out. I'm sure it was not so morbid, because it was a Grimm's fairy tale, and it couldn't have been that morbid, because it's for children, right? So anyways, okay, hold on just 1 minute here. Oh, I don't have any rings left, that's a shame. So anyways, we're gonna terraform Mars someday, it'll happen. As humans, we're smart enough to know exactly what it is we have to do to change the atmosphere to make it livable for humans, and once we do that, it won't take too long. It'll probably take like 100 years or so for us to eventually make the planet livable. We have to put water there, we gotta So Mars does have polar ice caps, and they are melted, or they are frozen water. Mars's polar ice caps are frozen water. And we gotta melt those, and they won't produce a whole lot of water, but they will produce just enough for us to be able to start to make our own there, whatever that means. You know, we got to build an atmosphere, weather systems, all that bunk. Now, you might not think that weather is that important, like rain and tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes. But see, the thing about weather is that weather basically means it's a guarantee that there is an atmosphere there, because weather can't happen without that atmosphere. Now, you know, tornadoes only happen because we have a livable atmosphere, and I don't take tornadoes for granted like I used to as a kid. I used to think tornadoes were gross and dangerous and frightening, but now I appreciate them for the beauty that they are. They're giant funnels that tell us you can live on this planet. So, with that being said, I think I'm going to take my leave for just a minute. We'll be back soon, and I'll see you again after we take a break. So goodbye. Mwah.